Yes. Hi, everyone. So before I start, if anybody can let me know that I am loud, clear, and audible to everyone.
Yeah, hi, Ekta.
Yes, very much you are
loud.
Okay. Thank you, Naudit. Thank you so much. So hello all. A very good afternoon. Myself, Ekta, and on behalf of the Brinalytics team and our presenting partner, PTC, we welcome you all and thank you for being part of a webinar driving digital transformation, game-changing technology in the pharmaceutical industry. So before we start the webinar, there are a few guidelines that I would quickly like to highlight and make you people aware of. Requesting all attendees to be on mute, though you guys all are on mute, but we'll definitely have a Q&A session after each speaker speaks. And the guidelines for the Q&A are: you need to raise your hands, unmute yourself on your video, introduce yourself, and put your question to the concerned speaker. So to start with, I would first like to introduce our presenting partner, PTC. PTC enables global manufacturers to realize double-digit impact with software solutions that enable them to accelerate product and service innovation, improve operational efficiency, and increase workforce productivity. In combination with an extensive partner network, PTC provides customers flexibility in how its technology can be deployed to drive digital transformation on premises, in a cloud, or via its pure SaaS platform. Through a combination of augmented reality, industrial IoT, PLM, and CAD solutions, PTC technology has helped their customers achieve some impressive results, which you can discover at www.ptc.com. So now, before I move on to our keynote speaker, I would first quickly like to highlight why we are all here today. The world as we know it today is being revolutionized by technology every passing minute. To adapt and succeed in this changing landscape, pharmaceutical companies are responding by digitizing and improving processes with the help of technology. The webinar today will focus on the digital transformation, the need to accelerate technology, and the potential benefits and efficiencies it brings along with it. We will also understand how the pharmaceutical industry is being impacted by these innovations in technology, value proposition brought about by the technologies like IoT and AR, harnessing its benefit, and what the future holds in terms of technology. We have some industry's leaders and experts today who will share their perspective on game-changing technologies. So now I would like to invite our keynote speaker, Mr. Raj Kiran C. To speak about him, Mr. Raj Kiran is a Senior Director and Head of IoT AR Business as PTC. He leads a team of sales, pre-sales, and demand generation executives to tap in the vast potential of the India market. Raj Kiran has been associated with companies like Oracle, Microsoft, IBM, HP, and Infosys, and has traveled close to 50 countries on various business and personal engagements. He has been with PTC for over 2.5 years and is helping companies to start their digital transformation journey as well as chart out their IoT plans. And he is here with us today to share insights on driving innovation, riding the wave of transformation, IIoT and AR. So Mr. Raj Kiran, over to you to start your session, and thank you for being with us.
Right, thank you, Ekta, for that introduction. Well, let me just go straight into the presentation. And let me take a look if my screen is visible to everybody.
Yes, yes.
All right, perfect. So what we're going to talk about today, I think pharmaceutical industry has been in the news for a lot of reasons, positive, in the past 15, 17 months. Right.
Raj Kiran, a little bit louder. Yes.
All right. Okay. Is it? Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah, I think better.
Is it clear now?
Yes.
All right. So yeah, I was talking about pharma industry being in the news in the past 17 months or so, since the world has changed to a large extent for all of us, and ways of living have changed. Now, we at PTC have been serving various different industries over the past 36 years, and pharmaceuticals probably over the past 5-6 years in various shapes and forms. We recognize that the challenges that the pharma industry faces is slightly different in terms of what the overall manufacturing industry faces as well. There is the regulation constraints. There is always the pressures of producing higher yield with better quality, but generally distributed data in heterogeneous equipment, etc., which prevent pharma manufacturing to get overall transparency. And that's, I think, one of the first goals of IoT implementations that most of the companies worldwide want to have when they get on the IoT journey. What does that result in? It is kind of hard to evaluate performance based on the level of sensors in a plant. The plant equipment are not very modern, and these are problems that are there worldwide. And when we deal with customers across the world, we do see there's plenty of these issues which are consistent, not just in India, but in other parts of the world as well.
Raj, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think people are mentioning that you need to be a little louder, please.
Right. Shall I try my headset on?
Yes, please. Of course, of course. Yes, yes.
Okay.
Right, Ekta, just confirm that.
This is perfect. Yes, this is perfect. Yeah, now very clear. Thank you.
All right, excellent. All right, so I was talking about the unique challenges that the pharma industry is probably facing. And when we deal with pharma customers worldwide, and we have a lot of other manufacturing customers in the auto and industrial space as well, but pharma customers specifically talk about the regulation challenges, the productivity and yield and quality challenges which are there, which are specific to pharmaceutical, or rather very pronounced in the pharmaceutical industry. All of these prevent the pharma manufacturing execs to get overall transparency into their processes, their people. So therein lies the challenges of IoT. IoT is about getting total operational visibility for a start into the various aspects of the enterprise. And that's what a CXO within a pharma company would like ideally to see. Now, the sensors in a plant could be outdated, the machines could be outdated, and therefore that challenge remains. It's not just for customers in India, but across the world as well. A lot of manual processes are there, which keep them from getting effective KPI reports. And of course, one of the things that even I heard while talking to a pharma customer, prospective customer this morning, is about skilled worker shortage and about the training time involved in getting their new joinees. And I understand that the churn in the pharma industry is quite huge to get the new joinees trained on the latest standard operating procedures across the enterprise. From a technology megatrend perspective, digital manufacturing, smart manufacturing, Industry 4.0, industrial IoT are all synonyms, but they're really a coming together of many different kinds of technologies. Connectivity is something I talked about in terms of sensors and all of that, but also the artificial intelligence, which the components of data and machine learning, which come into automating data preparation and help decision making, and making sure that the automation layer components are in place. Now, all of these together can contribute to smart manufacturing. And really what you want to measure as a pharma customer is these 4 Ps within the organization, or the operations within the organization, which is really your people to improve their efficiency, their productivity, and their safety as well. The products, achieving high quality products, as well as making a lot with less, right? Improving the yield. The processes, therefore, have to be extremely efficient. And how you track people across different spaces. And in the current scenario, you even have to make sure that people are not doing dangerous things or going into dangerous zones, etc. And therefore, places are an important aspect of the equation as well. Now, what are the kinds of benefits there are generally with digital transformation across in many different enterprises? They're across all of these different departments. When you really digitally transform your organization, you see benefits all across. But what we are going to really drill down into in this conversation today, subsequently in the panel discussion as well as now, is about manufacturing efficiency improvements. Okay, and really, this is the kind of improvements, 20 to 60% is what we see as quoted improvements from the various manufacturing customers. We've got 100 plus worldwide who are citing this kind of efficiency improvements. And where do they come from? They come from the change over time improvements in these high double-digit figures, percentages, the less rework required and less wastage that comes as a result of having great operational visibility, less time to learn things, less time to proficiency, as well as the asset uptime improvements or the improved downtime percentages that are there. Okay. Now, the PTC outlook and where we come in as a player that's been in the market for a significant number of years, 3.5 decades now. And we recognize there's industry challenges across these major 5 buckets. I know there's plenty more, but in the quality and yield aspect, you want to really achieve manufacturing excellence. We've got solutions across the asset monitoring and utilization space, as well as the process performance or production performance monitoring area. Now, benchmarking, plant benchmarking is something that I hear very often from pharma prospects as well, talking about 2 plants of theirs making the same kind of products, but we are not able to efficiently measure whether one plant is doing the right thing because there's no standardization of metrics from one plant to another, and they're all in silos sometimes and ad hoc, and therefore that is something that we see improved results with the RTPPM solution that we've got, as well as in the regulations and compliance space, more adherence with people doing the right thing, and we providing them with augmented work instructions and digital work instructions, for example, and transferring of talent or transferring of knowledge to the new recruits within a company, or even the existing people trying to learn new things, is all taken care of with our IoT as well as augmented reality solutions. Now, what we see as digital and augmented work instructions here is really our AR portfolio, which is really the methodology to take the digital data back into the physical world and create an experience out of it and make sure people understand it far better, learn faster, retain better. And I'm coming into a specific case study with one of the largest pharma manufacturers in the world in the subsequent section of my presentation. Also, sustainability, energy utilization optimization, right? So that's a major area. Environmental sustainability is something pharma companies want to talk about. And this is one of the easy use cases to tackle first in the IoT space, where a lot of companies, not just in pharma, but in other industries as well, talking to us about that they know that they're spending too much energy in a process, and how do you now get total visibility of that, and therefore how do you take corrective action to make improvements there. Now, those were the out-of-the-box solutions which you can deploy immediately, but you can also, on our platform, the ThingWorks platform, build these other use cases for various areas of what you need to do. And I think the slide is quite self-explanatory. Essentially, this covers everything from process monitoring to people's safety management and knowledge repository, as well as the assets downtime or the products which are there on your factory shop floors, and how do you predictively and preventively maintain them over time to make sure that you have minimal downtime, and constantly, therefore, measure your key performance indicators and understand how it is being done. All of this can be done in a very, very efficient fashion with the use of Industry 4.0 technologies. Now, this slide is to give you an example of how it looks if you really deploy this within your manufacturing space or for your process monitoring or your people monitoring. And this is a digital performance dashboard that shows you the KPIs, the real-time KPIs of the performance of different assets of yours, how a process, whether it's performing per expectation and how whether your machines are performing per expectation, etc. This is the kind of dashboards you can build. I'm sure this would have been seen multiple times by you in different presentations in terms of the kind of dashboards that can be built. What PTC enables doing is to build these very, very fast, which means and make it very easy to build them. Even a business user, let's say a plant manager, can really get into understanding how to really build these components because he knows the domain himself, and he can just do drag and drop and make sure that he builds this application in a matter of weeks in a lot of cases. Of course, the rest of it is about different digital performance dashboards on the OEE and the gap between what the current is and what your targeted OEE is, etc. All of these can be done very, very intuitively with the use of industrial IoT technologies, and that's what we have a good leadership in. Some of the references, I talked about a large manufacturer, and I meant Pfizer, and we started with them a couple of years ago, when they started adopting the technology initially for 5 sites, and there is an expansion that's happening for the various plants across the world. But what we've done is we've deployed various kinds of solutions across this time frame, and multiple regions are impacted. What they've really got to see the benefits of is yield and quality and reduced energy cost, as well as asset utilization is actually improved. These are being quantified, and we'll actually put out numbers very soon, but these are the initial impact areas. Another global life sciences company is in the area of polio vaccine production, and these are the kind of benefits that we were able to do for their cell culture process. And again, asset utilization, improving uptime of the assets, as well as production yield and operational efficiency is what were improved, as well as operator productivity with the augmented reality technologies. I'm actually showing you a video of how the combination of IoT and AR could look for you to actually visualize performance of various different equipment within a factory floor. Okay, and you could actually look at the temperature statistics, for example, of a chiller or a mixer, which are there across a factory, and the current OEE statistics. You saw the 2D dashboards earlier, but this is a representation of what you can see when you either wear a wearable or looking at it through a tablet or a handheld device. That should give you a small idea. I come to the last segment of what I wanted to show you today, which is what Pfizer did with us on the augmented reality. And that's what the word Vuforia here is about. Augmented reality technology and how they improved their operational productivity or their standard operating procedure time with the use of AR technology. Okay. And the challenge statement, and we'll have somebody from Pfizer speak about this in a short video as well, but the current challenges of the current state was about complexity in the pharma manufacturing. There were complex procedures and SOPs. There was a need for more on-the-job training, and there was a lot of reading and understanding of documents that was happening, and there is a cognitive dissonance that is there when you read a document and try to implement that on the action that you're taking. Rather, if you wear a wearable and look at something, that dissonance is not quite there, and you're far more effective. And there was a greater need for effective training and knowledge retention from frontline workers. Okay. And here are the statistics of what Pfizer had as a workforce. There were 608 Pfizer colleagues. The average length of the employment was around this, but there was 1/3 of the workforce that was started in the past 5 years. And therefore there was a lot of knowledge to be gained. And there was a loss of tacit knowledge due to retirement as well as turnover, which is attrition. These were the challenges for them. Now, the expert capture, the solution in question here, and what really brought them the benefits is a very well-structured knowledge transfer, augmented reality-based solution that we've got. It is a solution to capture, edit, and view content. And the advantages of AR, like I was mentioning earlier, is people retain really 80% of what they see and only 20% of what they read and only 10% of what they hear. So really seeing helps people retain better and even learn faster. Okay, so our solution is built in a way that there's separate modules for capturing, editing, and viewing. And this is the kind of application areas and technologies that were leveraged by Pfizer. And let's now listen to the person in the technology department who was actually describing the solution. And Ekta, I want confirmation if this is audible to everybody.
Okay. Has it started? No.
Okay. So 1 second, I'll have to do a share with audio. All right, I hope it is audible now.
So I would like to play
Yes.
a video
Volume is little less.
demonstrates the value that expert capture is having for our frontline workers. So just before I play the video,
There's some subtitles, so
basically
you could at least read through that as well. I can't increase the volume.
Somebody's
No problem.
equipment that they had never seen before, with the written SOP, so the current procedure, versus with an expert capture procedure. So I just want to preface before we start the video, what we did was we first got this person to set up the equipment with the written SOP, but we didn't tell him if he had made any mistakes. We didn't tell him whether it was right or wrong. We just got him to then go ahead and set up the equipment with the expert capture. So we didn't let him know what his mistakes were. We just let him continue. So I'll play this video and I'll speak over it while we're going. Okay, so this you've seen before. This is the overview of how expert capture works. And for this task, so this was our SME who's actually recording with the RealWear device how to set up this particular piece of equipment. Then he can go ahead and edit that procedure in the editing tool, so snipping out the parts that he wants, adding in the different pieces of text. Then he can publish that procedure, so share out to a different device. So what we can see here is on the left hand side, we have with the paper SOP. So he has never seen this piece of equipment before. He just has the written SOP printed out in front of him, and is attempting to set up this filter. On the right hand side, we have with the expert capture procedure that our SME created. So he's viewing that on an iPad that you can see here and is basically just moving through the next steps as he goes. So it was interesting to watch because even as you watch the comparison, you'll see he took a completely different approach with expert capture from the beginning of the setup. You might see in the left-hand side video, he's kind of checking over to the SME for reassurance to make sure that he's doing it correctly. He's just generally, his demeanor is not as confident. So when we look at the right-hand side, we'll see that the expert capture was complete faster, firstly, so 23% faster. But most interestingly, he made 0 errors this time when he was setting up with the expert capture video versus 3 errors when he was setting up with the paper SOP. One of those that actually could have been a serious error or could have resulted in damage of the equipment had he gone ahead and used it following just the paper SOP. Also, interestingly, zero assistance required from the SME, so we're saving time from our subject matter experts having to go back and explain to new hires or people who haven't carried out the procedure before how to do it. So we just...
Right. So I think...
So I would like to...
I think I hope it was audible, but if it was not, I think at the very end, what she said was there were two major takeaways from this, or rather three, but two major ones, which were one, it was 23% faster to complete. And therefore you save that much time and that much efficiency, and therefore satisfaction of the worker as well. And on the errors side, there were zero errors to set up, to perform that setup procedure with technology, with Vuforia expert capture, compared to with the paper SOP. And then the third, of course, was about the assistance required and therefore saving time of the subject matter expert, which was not really required with using technology for this. I think this was my final segment. I end my presentation here. I will answer questions that appear to have come in the chat window. I will hand this over now to Navdeep to take you into the panel discussion with our esteemed panel of experts.
Okay. Thank you so much, Rajkiran, for being
Thanks.
here and sharing your thoughts. So as Rajkiran mentioned that we can take a Q&A here from a chat box. So any queries, any questions, please put on the chat box and we'll take it from there. Yes? Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much. Okay, so now quickly moving on to our next session, that is interesting panel discussion, that is changing dynamic of Indian pharmaceutical industry vis-a-vis technology, what future holds. So quickly introducing our panel speakers. I would like to introduce Mr. Gyan Pandey, Global and Group CIO, Aurobindo Pharma, seasoned technology leader with proven track record of driving and enabling business growth through digital transformation. He has 25 years of rich experience in IT leadership and digital strategy, global delivery management, ERP implementation, PMO, and competency management. We have Mr. Vijendra Kumar Mishra, Chief Information Security Officer, Alchem Laboratories. To speak about him, he's a seasoned cybersecurity professional having more than 20 plus years of experience in cyber defense, expertise in forensic, digital investigation. He believes in creating cyber warriors who act as a human firewall and helps organizations to develop and adopt cybersecurity culture. He has also authored a book on cybersecurity called Cybersecurity, Be Aware, Connect with Care. We have Lekha Satish, Innovation and Internal Excellence Lead Asia with AstraZeneca. She has 18 years of experience in IT strategy and digital transformation. She has focused on innovation, blockchain, and other emerging techs in the last few years. Focusing on technology that can have tangible benefits to end customer is her forte. We have Mr. Rohit Garg, Vice President, Business Excellence with Alembic Pharmaceuticals. Rohit Garg has 20 years plus experience in multiple domains, primarily focusing on sales and marketing effectiveness. He has worked in large multinational and Indian organizations focusing on commercial effectiveness, especially in pharmaceutical domain. We have Mr. Pratyush B, Director, Global Digital Delivery Center, India, Abbott India. He leads Global Digital Delivery Center in Mumbai and is responsible for building the foundation capabilities to enable Abbott's digital marketing and commerce strategy. He has led digital transformation initiatives for Abbott's diversified healthcare business across pharma, medical devices, and nutrition. We have Mr. Rene, Business Development Director, Life Science, CER, and Chairman of PTC Healthcare Executive Advisory Council. Rene has an experience in the life science industry, supporting companies to transform to an agile enterprise through Industry 4.0 and digitalization. He has built up the life science practice at PTC in Germany. As the chair of the PTC Healthcare Executive Advisory Council, Rene organizes and runs joint workshops with PTC's most strategic life science customers and PTC executives on industry's top and requirements. Rene is also a member of ISPE and contributes to the special interest group Pharma 4.0. And now I would like to invite our moderator, Mr. Navdeep Thakur, Sales Manager, IoT and AR Business India with PTC. To speak about him, he has worked across domains like pharmaceutical, agri-tech, and edutech. In his current role at PTC, he helps companies with the adoption of Industry 4.0 tech and driving maximum value out of such adoption. So now over to you, Navdeep, to start your session.
Thanks a lot, Ekta. Thanks for that introduction. Welcome to all the speakers and all the participants. Hope you enjoyed the presentation by Raj. I certainly did. I see that Mr. Pandey is yet to join, so we'll start off with Renee. Renee, if you're on.
Yes, I'm on. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon. Now, Renee, great to have you here. First of all, you've been at the forefront of seeing and advising big pharma and life sciences companies on the adoption of digital tech, as well as Industry 4.0 tech, like IoT and augmented reality, for quite some years now. Could you throw some light on, how companies in the US and EU have gone about such projects, and how partnering with an IoT leader can really create a lot of tangible value to sort of set the tone for the discussion going forward?
Yeah, very good question, Nadeep. So what we've experienced is, and Raj already mentioned one of the examples, one of the customers we have worked with, which is Pfizer. But all the others we are also working with is that what we have in common there is we need to agree on a joint vision on what should be achieved. Yeah, because what we've learned over the last couple of years is that I don't know if you are familiar with this pilot purgatory effect that was also investigated by McKinsey and the World Economic Forum, is that if you do not have a vision, if you do not have the let's say know where to go and what to achieve, then it's really hard to start and to make all the improvements and the digitization initiatives sustainable. So what Pfizer was a good example. So they have really also aligned. And it's also an important thing is that you cannot see this digital transformation and the application of new technologies as a pure IT project. It is a business project. And what Pfizer, for instance, did is also they aligned IT and the business responsibilities, and they took the respective roles and persons to identify the most important challenges and the most important benefits they wanted to gain, to then come up with ideas on driving the operational excellence. And the same is true for many other customers. So we are working, for instance, very closely with a German pharma company that has also investigated into how can I make more of the data and what technology is available to improve the performance, for instance, in the packaging lines here. So how can I use the data that all the equipment is already generating, and how can I make this data as information available to the shop floor workers, but also to the supervisors and also to the maintenance departments, to, back to Raj's presentation, to avoid downtime, to reduce the downtime in case it is there, but also contextualizing the data by avoiding looking into the different data silos we are seeing. And we are seeing different approaches in terms of where to start. Yeah, for instance, this account or this customer I just talked about is they started on the packaging line. Then we are working with another customer, also a German pharma, who started in a laboratory environment, because what they saw there is huge load on very low value adding tasks on the lab experts, and they wanted to improve the work and also utilize the people in a more effective, in a more valuable way for the organization. So they started to look into how can I improve processes in the lab. For instance, how can I digitize my sample registration process? So all the samples that are coming back into the pharma organization from the different hospitals across the globe, and register that into the organization, and then putting it into the respective processes for further analyzing and reporting the results of those samples.
Great. Thanks for that, Rene. That was a very insightful discussion on how Industry 4.0 particularly has been adopted in the segments like R&D and manufacturing first. But going forward, we also see that a lot of use cases do come up in the commercial. If we take patient centricity into account, we see a lot of use cases, particularly with the advent of big data. I'd like to move on to Ms. Lekha next. So, Lekha, we know that patient centricity is a key driver for pharma companies and even the larger ecosystem of hospital and the governments now. Could you highlight some of the examples of how this is being done, let's say using technologies like IoT or augmented reality, artificial intelligence, machine learning?
Sure. First of all, thanks for having me for this discussion. As Mr. Raju Kiran had mentioned in the keynote, AI and IoT are in the center now in the pharma industry. You talked about, Mr. Rene also talked about the role that they're playing, perhaps in the manufacturing, which I would take the liberty to say, the behind the scene roles, the efficiency it brings in. But the impact it's bringing on the other side, towards the patients, towards the HCP, its ability to touch lives is perhaps far more greater because it's improving people's lives. Say if you were to trace a patient journey from the aware, if you were to say from the time he's aware of the disease, he goes for a diagnostics, he gets a treatment done. Assuming unfortunately he tests positive, and then you go about monitoring. And if you were to try to populate, the solutions that are there, you will see that almost entirety of this journey you can have do with AI and IoT combination, and in some places with augmented reality. So that's the ability which these technologies bring in, where they are seamlessly connecting the physical and the digital world. To the extent there have been gaps in the patient journey which haven't been filled for years, like at-home care services, there's always been a challenge there. The ability to continuously monitor, imagine the fast size of the market or the country we are in, the ability to manage the patients when the HCP to patient ratio is so very skewed. And typically HCP needs at least 40 minutes with the patient, but he cannot manage more than 15. So that gap, that about monitoring, about what should the patient do when he goes back home, how do you improve the quality of life? All this has been quite a challenge in management. And lifestyle diseases, like diabetes, hypertension, which have far more things to be done beyond the touch point with that when the HCP, where HCP, when I mean is, a healthcare professional, when you move away from the healthcare professional, there's a lot to be done in there. So all these things were not addressed before in the non-digital world, where we didn't have AI, IoTs, and other technologies. And some of the things like chronic conditions like CKD, chronic liver conditions, or heart failures, which need constant monitoring, there was no solution. They had to go to the hospital when required. This meant a very immense reduction in the quality of life. The disease outcomes were not great. But all these things, the solutions which AIs are bringing is making a very big impact, and pharmaceutical companies, the overall ecosystem is adopting this in a very fast pace. Just to talk about the numbers, there's almost 6.6 billion market for just wellness and disease prevention apps. I'm here not at all even including apps like Benna, which is an AI and IoT enabled device, which can use your smartphones to read SpO2, stress and BP and other things. And there are solutions which use augmented reality to tell you how should the nutrition be. And now this is very much far better than getting a pamphlet where you read and then you have these two options to do. But what if we are giving an option where You are choosing, these are the things I'd like to eat, and these are my preferred areas of food. And then it comes up with the recipes or the, your food that you can have for the day, which is perhaps more suited to your palate, will help you with the better outcome in your getting better, and it will make a large number of impact. And the advert and the adoption of this is very high in the in this pandemic conditions, especially in the urban market. Now, this is the kind of things we these solutions have been doing in the AI solutions have been doing. But if I were to choose the rural space too, the solutions which are coming in like the Jana Care and the Arogyam Medisop, which some of the winners from our recent innovation challenges or the Easy Check, they are making diagnostics very, very easy, more economical, more visible. With one prick of the blood, they can take out the entire details that can be analyzed, and it can be done at the spot of drawing the sample, and it reduces the cost. So its reach is far more higher, it is better, and it helps. And it's always been a Herculean task to convince patients to adhere to medicines or in lifestyle changes, or convincing them to undergo any procedures. This is true for all of Asia markets. That's the feedback we often hear from our medical colleagues. And within a country which has a solid roots in alternate medications like Ayurveda, Unani, and others, this is much more challenging, especially in terms of oncology. Some diseases like blood cancer doesn't get cured over time. First, there is a mental stress associated with the very diagnosis of the condition, and then the treatment is very cyclical. The patient has to undergo, then there is a period of recovery, and sometimes there is a need for a second round of things. So all these places, the patient feels very uneasy because he's getting awareness or he's getting information in bits and pieces. So we are coming up with solutions, and there are solutions in the market which all pharmaceutical companies are looking at, and also HCPs are using, which are using in augmented reality to actually see how the disease is progressing. So when you have a list from your test done, which has been 15 parameters, which makes no sense to you, which has normals defined so, and your higher parameters, limits defined so, this makes them understand it better. So say if it's something is saying that the blood count is so, and this is the size of the your hemoglobin, so it tries to visualize and show them that what does it actually mean, and when we do a treatment, how it's going to affect, and why do we say it's going to take at least 3 months time for things to actually start working. It's because that's the production time. It impacts the bone marrow, and the cells start to rebuild it once again with a newer medication, with the assistance. This sometimes really helps with the recovery a lot, and it helps with the patient solutions getting better, because after all, mind plays a very big factor in all the treatments. And this helps there. It helps them to feel better about the condition, get more positive about the condition. So this role of both AI, IoT, augmented reality, analytics is getting everything very immense. Be it the point of precision medications, where there is a high-end study where your genome is studied to understand that what is the like EGFR and other studies are done to understand that what is your propensity to some risk, or what's the risk you're carrying in your gene itself, and then you try to layer it up with your lifestyle and your blood reports to say that exactly when do you think you're gonna hit the wall, and what can you do to come behind it, and then you can actually create simulations to show that this is the speed at which we're gonna go towards the disease and where you need to get operated. But with these interventions, we think you're going to do better, and how we are getting better, and how we're going to change how your vitals are changing. Those things, it helps us to visualize. It helps the patients to visualize, and helps them to do better. So this is just perhaps all these things are just the tip of the iceberg. The things that AI are doing is so much across the globe that we are seeing products from Korea which are very, very economical, far more economical. If you were to go into a hospital and do, there are solutions which are of size of a your ring, which can just wear it as a ring, and it continuously monitors all your heart vitals, and it can it's connected via cloud to your HCP. So if there is in a case of interventions required, he gets an emergency alert so that he can help you do good. So it's better than wearing that the bigger ECG readers, which traditionally people used to do. And then there are solutions coming from India like Dozy, which is you have put in AI and IoT together in which is like a sheet under your mattress, which continuously checks your perspiration and other levels to say, how are you doing? How are you doing better? Especially when you want to do in COVID conditions where you want to have less touch points. These things really make a lot of difference. So what just to sum it up, what happens is this is an ecosystem coming together. So government is supporting early interventions, early diagnostics using AI and solutions. Pharmaceutical companies are using them to do better products, create more focused products, and then the payers in the ecosystems like insurance and others are using AI to create this closed loop system to say that what is your risk around, and how can we do better to give you a better kind of insurance so that you get the right treatment for things like lifestyle diseases, which earlier weren't covered by the licenses. So this is about all this technology coming together to make life better and creating a quality life for people who have diseases which can be a NCD or an communicable disease or something that is kind of a lifestyle one.
Thanks, Lekha, for that. That was a great exposition of how patient centricity is at the center of so many of use of these technologies. And I think one of the most important points you brought about was the communication to the patient or the person who actually has to take the medicine becomes so much easier with some of these technologies. You spoke about how this communication has become so much easier with AR. We now move on to Rohit, who will speak about how the communication part on the other side of it, let's say from pharma company to HCPs themselves on the commercial side, can be enhanced by use of some of these technologies. So Rohit, first of all, great to have you here.
Pleasure here.
How would you categorize, pharma industry's digital maturity vis-a-vis, let's say, some of the other industries, particularly from a commercial standpoint? Any key drivers or use cases that you could highlight that really propel the adoption of these technologies in the pharma space?
Thanks, Navdeep. Thank you so much, and thanks for having me here. Really delighted. So the question about how is the digital changing the pharma world, and I can actually tell only from the commercial point of view, having spent time in sales and marketing. So there are so many things pharma companies can do, and they are doing it to engage with the whole lot of stakeholders in this entire ecosystem. So typically, if you see for a pharmaceutical company from the commercial point of view, the key stakeholder is a doctor, is a physician. You meet them. And obviously, you meet the doctor through your field force. So your field force is another very important stakeholder. And then the entire how the drug delivery happens, which is through the channels, your stockists and your retailers, that becomes very important. And then, around all these, then your internal operational hygiene, within the organization. So if I bucket them into these four, the digital has touched almost, all the stakeholders. Whether the pharma companies, how they engage with the customers, how they talk to them, what it used to be about 10, 15 years back and what it is now, I think it has dramatically changed. And thanks to the evolution in the technology and the digital engagement that has come in, the complex molecules, which used to be really hard to communicate, and it used to really take a lot of effort from the MR to communicate, especially in areas like oncology and CKD. Now with the help of digital aids, it has become much more easier to engage with the customers, and also it has become much more easier for the customers to get the right messages from the pharma company, because instead of treating all the customers exactly the same, now you can segment your customers. You can understand what kind of concerns a particular set of physicians have about a delivery, and based on that you can really customize your your messages for that set of customers. So I think that has helped in terms of customer engagement. For your field force, I think the life has become much easier. I mean, if you talk to any medical rep who has been about 30 years in the field, they will recount how the times have changed in the last, especially in the last 5 to 6 years, and how life has become much more easier in terms of how they report their work, how they see their KPIs, how they even come to know how their customers are behaving and how the channels is behaving. I think it's a much more kind of very fast, I would say, but and also they're getting almost the real-time information. So field force has definitely got a lot of benefits, especially on the channel side. If I say stockist or the pharmacy, the way you get intelligence from them, I think that has also changed a lot compared to what it used to be earlier. And now, you would know exactly at a pin code level, exactly, what kind of molecules are being prescribed, what kind of, competition, molecules are being written. And based on that, you can do a lot more intelligence within your, marketing to see that how do I target my specific set of customers. So I think a lot has changed, and I think there are certain organizations which are very early adopters, especially the large Indian pharma companies and the MNCs. It all actually started about, I would say, in the early 2010s, 12, 13 time, about 7-8 years back. And now there were many more companies who are kind of, catching up. And now the digital, which used to be a differentiator earlier, now it has almost become like a hygiene. If you don't have it, then you're lacking something. And if you have it, then you are one of the many players who are, utilizing it. So it is more of now a hygiene factor than a differentiator. And I think that's where more and more improvisation is happening. The organization also learning newer ways to apply it. And I think that's a learning for all of us, that how we keep adopting it and mastering it, and then finding out new ways of leveraging it commercially to the advantage of the company. So I think it's a journey. Some are at the early end of it, and maybe some are following it. But I would say it's a great journey, I would say.
Thanks for your thoughts, Rohit. Very insightful again. Next, I would like to move to Mr. Mishra. Welcome, Mr. Mishra, to the panel. And as an industry leader, as a technology leader, what are your thoughts on how what is pharma industry's view of technologies? We see that it's often influenced by regulatory environment to a large extent, particularly more so than any other industry. Pharma is always driven by what the regulatory environment is. In light of those requirements, how do you see the readiness for Indian pharma, particularly in the light of regulation, whether it be at the end of, let's say, manufacturing, whether it be in R&D, and the need for information security or cyber security, particularly around patents or some of the information that is proprietary for particular companies. How would you characterize the adoption of digital or industry 4.0 technology in the light of these restrictions?
Thank you, Navdeep. Thanks for having me here today. I'm glad to be part of this panel. Yeah. So as you said rightly, pharmaceutical industry is one of the highly regulated industries, and all we know that. With the many rules and restrictions enforced by the local government, to protect health and well-being of the public. Yeah. So and regulations are well designed to ensure safety, efficacy, and quality of the drug available to the consumer. Yeah. So that is what is regulation we have. And when we talk about industry 4.0, or we talk about pharma 4.0, I mean, there's no reason that pharmaceutical companies should not think about that. Yeah. Because the solution what we have right now, and with what we talk about industry 4.0, it's a complete blend of latest and advanced technology, where we talk about advanced analytics, we talk about big data, we talk about robotics and automation. Yeah, we talked about artificial intelligence, we talked about Internet of Things, we talked about process digitization, and across the business value chain. So I mean, there is no reason that pharmaceutical companies will not think about that. That is for sure. But definitely there are some challenges, and when as I said, pharma is one of the most regulated industries. So there are there are various challenges which pharma industry faces, which I will talk later, bit later. So let us talk about, how pharma industry can get benefit of this industry 4.0. Yeah. So normally, I mean, in our day-to-day work, when I, discuss with the business leaders, and they are from different, companies, they're heading multiple, manufacturing units, heading R&D, heading formulations and all. I mean, every leader understands that industry 4.0, will play a very instrumental role when it comes to pharma. Yeah. Like, when we talk about advanced analytics, it can, help you to enhance your production, capacity and its quality. Yeah. When we talk about adoption of robotics and automation, we know that, it will shorten your production cycle. Yeah. It will reduce your time to market and, bring inefficient utilization of resources. Yeah. The digitization of various, business processes definitely will help you to, to go for a cost saving. Yeah. And also for better experience for customers and employees. Yeah. When you talk about IoT, I think Kirandeep has nicely laid out, how IoT plays very instrumental role in pharma. Yeah, so IoT and connectivity of, machine to people and all, we call it, machine to machine or machine to people, that definitely would tighten supply chain and reduce, lead time. But definitely when we talk about artificial intelligence, that is the, this can really play a very big role. And I witnessed that also, and not only in one sector. I mean, when we talk about artificial intelligence across the functioning pharmaceutical, I mean, it can play a very, important role. You talk about R&D, you talk about, drug development, you talk about diagnosis, you talk about disease prevention, we talk about epidemic predictions. If you see in many cases, diseases are getting predicted. In Africa, I've seen that, malaria got predicted while using, AI and ML. Yeah. So manufacturing, of course, one of the sector where definitely AI plays very important role, and then marketing. So overall, I mean, if you see, I don't think that there is any reason that pharmaceutical companies will not think about industry 4.0, or you call it pharma 4.0. Although it has some challenges, and yes, as you said rightly, pharma industry has been relatively very slow, when it comes to embrace concepts such as pharma 4.0 or industry 4.0. And again, if you compare with other manufacturing sectors like FMCG and telcos, you will find that pharma has been relatively slow. That is for sure. Yeah. And one of the reason apart from this regulatory, I mean, what I found that combination of high profit margins and manufacturing complexity is one of the reasons. Yeah, pharma has been very slow in adopting, digital transformation or pharma 4.0. Yeah, in pharma, what happens, the moment you put in a system anything that can make any sort of relevant decisions, you need to start, spending a lot of time and money, and that is basically on validation and qualification. So that is a big obstacle you have, So validation and qualification takes long time, and you need to spend a lot of time and money. So that is also one factor apart from regulatory side. I mean, pharma industry has been facing. So, but other challenges, which I wanted to talk about when we talk about pharma, 4.0. As all we know that, achieving industry 4.0 requires, adopting advanced manufacturing technologies, and overcoming, regulatory, technical, and logistic challenges. Yeah. So each step, change on the path to an industry 4.0, manufacturing environment should lead to more autonomous manufacturing systems. And that not only move towards autonomous manufacturing systems, you need to also, lead with the enhanced process control and more, major quality management. So the major reason, for delaying in adopting new technologies is related to the, vast institutional and regulatory knowledge. Yeah, acute on existing platforms, technologies, the lack of course, authority in the industry, the cost associated with the development, and perceived regulatory uncertainties also are one reason among multiple reasons. That is also one reason that pharma companies always think about first to be second approach. Yeah, so first to be second is something which definitely most of the pharma companies has been following, and that approach by observing how other competitors approach new manufacturing technologies and how regulators respond as well. So that is also one thing. But one good thing I have seen, during this 1.5 years, when this COVID-19 pandemic started, this COVID-19 pandemic is really serving as a catalyst, I would say, for sweeping changes within the industry. Yeah. While there are few, companies with major pharma 4.0 programs, I know them personally. I will not name those pharma companies. The benefits of digitization are growing, more obvious, of course. Pharma companies using industry 4.0 tools can cut manufacturing cost up to 40%. I remember when Raj Kiran was talking about that, he mentioned that 45 to 60% something. But I would agree with him that while using digital transformation or adopting 4.0 pharma 4.0, companies can cut their costs up to 40% while improving the quality of the product. So that is one thing which pharma companies should think about. Also, if you see what pandemic has brought further, this pandemic has compelled pharma companies to rethink their operations and to be more resilient. Yeah. Of course, I mean, when you have some sort of digital tools, for instance, can help pharma companies to mitigate risk in the supply chain. So supply chain, has been one of the challenge for pharma industry, and especially during this pandemic. Yeah. Also, if you talk about other technology like digital enabled printers, yeah, I know a couple of pharma companies have been using this technology for long now. So, for instance, digitally enabled printers can ensure that you have accurate expiration date, printing over the counter drugs. Yeah, while monitoring the printer health also. So that is another advantage you have when you think about digitally enabled, or digital technology. Since that this pandemic continues to catalyze changes, one risk that industry 4.0 and related concepts has, I mean, that is when we talk about smart factories. So smart factory is one of the major component of industry 4.0. So pharma companies has been facing this challenge when we talk about smart factories. When it gets you have competitors and those competitors are very aggressively following transformative trends. So that is one thing that also I found that when you talk about smart factories, pharma companies has been facing some challenges. Yeah. Apart from that, if you see this pandemic itself also, since you talked about regulatory and all, also we have seen that this pandemic itself has also forced pharma companies to grapple with evolving in-person FDA inspections of pharmaceutical facilities. Yeah. Recently, I mean, I had witnessed one of the FDA inspections. So I mean, it forced manufacturers in general to increase their focus on decontamination and sterilization. So that is another I would say this pandemic brought for pharma something as an eye opener. Yeah. So I mean, ultimately, if you think about industry 4.0 for pharma, the promise of industry 4.0 to enhance manufacturing efficiency, could be particularly alluring, for an industry that spends double-digit percentage in research and development. Pharma, research and development is like it's the crown of the joint. Yeah. So and pharma industries, they spend a lot of money on R&D. So industry 4.0, has some promising, I would say component which will definitely, help R&D to think about. And especially I have seen during this pandemic when we were talking about drug discovery and all, normally the drug discovery cycle, it takes somewhere 8 to 10 years. But we found that during this pandemic, we got something within 8 to 12 months. Yeah. So that was another beauty of having this industry 4.0. So there are some challenges, but definitely, pharmaceutical companies are having its own challenges in terms of, you don't have skill set, you don't have technology, and again, you are bound with the regulators and all. But in the meantime, what I wanted to, give a message here among attendees that, pharma companies should keep an eye on other industries as well, who are, industry 4.0 trailblazers. And I could name some, like FMCG, like telcos. Yeah. So pharmaceutical industry is more or less like, FMCG. So, and, pharma FMCG, they went for this industry 4.0 a long time back. And there, I mean, there is quite mature. So, FMCG, one of the, example of pharmaceutical, industries. to think about. But overall, I would say that future is good if it is being protected with proper care. Yeah. So that's from my side, Navdeep. Back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mishra. That was a very, very comprehensive explanation of how pharma should, in fact, grapple with the adoption and the challenges outlined very nicely, and the way forward for many of the pharma industries. So thanks for that, Mr. Mishra. I think one very important point you brought out through your talk was, how should a technology leader synergize the business priorities with the technology adoption? That was very key. I think Rene also brought along that point up initially in his talk, that technology for the sake of technology would never make sense for any company, regardless of the industry they're in. It has to be aligned with the proper business priority. Only then would you get that push within the company, as well as see that value generation out of it. And to that end, I'll move on to Pratyush. Pratyush, great to have you here. As Mr. Mishra rightly said, that COVID has hastened the adoption of digital across so many industries, pharma being no exception. In fact, pharma has been a trailblazer in that sense. We've all seen that over the past 24 months. In your experience as a digital leader, what are some of the valuable use cases that you have seen, with respect to digital adoption, how they have, come up within the, let's say, the last 5 years or last 2 years? If you could highlight some of those.
Sure. First of all, thanks for having me here. Navdeep, it's really great to hear different perspectives from the esteemed panel, from the panelists from the industry. So thank you very much. To answer your question very rightly so, and also what my fellow panelists are saying, COVID-19 has been the catalyst, and the digital agendas. The digital agendas was always there for all the companies in the pharmaceutical space or the healthcare space. It's just that it's been highly accelerated right now. Post the COVID-19, like what my fellow panelists said, that if you look at the traditional hotspots of technology, which is like the ERPs, or you look at the Salesforce automation solutions that you have for the go-to-market capabilities, they have always been there. And the COVID-19 just proved that the investment in those digital technologies have just enabled the businesses to run their operations in almost like a business as usual mode. Be it the planning, the sales and marketing, the production, everything, supply chain, they have been going on because the investment in digital technologies have been there. But with COVID-19, there has emerged a genuine need to solve the real world problems that consumers are facing in this current pandemic. And there has been an increased usage of consumer digital technologies like mobile apps, mixed reality in this whole healthcare space, and sometimes being part of the actual healthcare product itself. I can take examples from my own company. So, in Abbott, in July 2021, we launched what we call as the Pan Bio self antigen test, which came with a complimentary mobile app called Navica. Now, what does tool does it enables anyone who is taking that test to see the results immediately within 15 minutes. It's a simple, non-invasive, it's a minimally invasive. You take a nasal swab and you can put it on the test, and then within 15 minutes you get the results. Now, what the mobile app does is, the Navica app, it allows the user to take a photograph automatically, and then the results are allows the user to send the results automatically to ICMR, the Indian Council of Medical Research, and just look at the potential of this app. If the app was launched in India, but it was almost like launched a year before in the US, and what it did was it went one step further. It actually gives what you call a green digital health passport. It says that this person is is not infected, and it is allowing the country to open up. The malls are opening up. People can go to restaurants, stadiums, theaters. People can travel. The effect is it's actually improving the whole world, and that's being done with a mobile. With the mobile technology. Now, if I also, and my examples might not necessarily be pharma, but I'll take examples from the the whole healthcare space. One of the other use cases that we have, again, from my company is we have used mixed reality in the medical devices space, and this is both for the manufacturing as well as for our field technicians who are visiting the laboratories, the clinics of the doctors. So at any point of time, if you look at a field technician, they're trying to repair the machines, they're trying to do preventive maintenance. Now in certain situations they might not necessarily have the answer to repair a product, or they need to call up the call center for support from the SME. At that point of time, with the pandemic coming in, it was not necessarily possible that an escalation would result in that I'm not able to solve the problem. SME comes in and solve that problem, and at the same time the number of calls would have also increased, and it is also not possible to bring back every field technicians to go through a training. So there was design thinking workshop done trying to genuinely understand how the problem can be solved. With that, the idea was that why not use mixed reality? I mean, we used HoloLens to do a remote collaboration between the SME and the field technicians, and with mixed reality, obviously, I mean, all that I'm hearing from what PTC is doing as well, it enabled the SMEs to talk, to explain that any point of time that I'm not able to solve a problem, use 3D models of the machines itself to say that, hey, probably this is where the problem is, and and this is how this is the particular sensor, or this is a particular instrumentation that needs to be fixed when you are looking at this problem. So again, this was always probably this was one of the 10 POCs that was already planned, but the pandemic just ensured that this would be the number one priority to solve, because it was solving a genuine real world problem. The other thing that I've also heard from Lekha is about the whole medication management, adherence to people generally will not stick to to the prescribed line of treatment. They would generally not take medicines on time, or they will forget to do it. What again, another example that from our own organization is where we have built a platform on which we are able to reach out to our patients, where we can send out reminders telling them, hey, this is the time to take your medicine. Why don't you take a medicine right now? It's still at a basic level, but look at the potential and the tremendous potential that this particular tool has right now. I mean, I can think of voice enabled tech to that can be used to send out reminders, or if you have smart wearable devices that that the patients are wearing, that information can actually be tied to their lifestyle, and the whole potential of using AI in that space. And we look at when we look at pharma, again, in the packaging space itself, there has been opportunity to use QR codes, NFCs, RFIDs to improve the whole control over the whole supply chain. Again, if I talk about the whole monitoring part of a patient's lifestyle, I mean, we have a product which we call as the Freestyle Libre, which is essentially a continuous glucose monitoring a tool that we have. It's a small sensor the size of a coin that a patient can put on their arm. Diabetics would typically put on their arms, and you get a continuous reading of your glucose. So what it enables the patient, the caregiver, and the HCP to do is, being a lifestyle device, you have to change your lifestyle, and this is a perfect tool that gives that information. That information is actually available to the patient, to the caregiver, to the HCP. Again, we have different versions of it. The latest versions are not really launched in India till now, but some of these information is actually available on mobile phones. So the whole space of consumer tech is really getting utilized, and I think the pandemic is a big catalyst for that. And to just round up my answer to your question, Navdeep, I would say that COVID-19 is definitely the catalyst, and it has really accelerated the whole usage of digital and people, and it's right now on the agenda of every CXO, I would say. And my only thought here would be is there's a lot of opportunity here. COVID-19 has opened the floodgates. What we should really be focused on is incremental or frugal innovation development. Like I always like to say, MVP, minimum viable product, or a version 1.2 or version 1.2 or 1.3 is much better than waiting for the perfect product, because when an opportunity arises, it's always up to us to grab it. And this is probably the great time for digital in healthcare.
Thanks for that, Pratyush. Very insightful again. One of the most interesting examples that you mentioned, and this is something that we have seen a greater uptake in the past couple of years as well, has been particularly about the servicing of the medical devices that you spoke about. We haven't just seen that from a services standpoint, but also within the manufacturing space itself. There are so many critical assets that pharma companies have within that manufacturing space, which require proper maintenance. We need to have a proper visibility of when an unplanned, when a downtime might occur, as Renee spoke about, and I think Raj also spoke about in his presentation. The visibility of how to maintain these critical assets and increase their uptime, or getting the people at the right time to sort of prepare them according to the right instructions, having new people quickly trained on how to do proper line changeovers. This has been a massive value use case across pharma industry, and in fact across industries themselves. So that has been one of our key learnings, at least for the past 3-4 years, in terms of use cases. Anyways, great to interact with everyone. The floor is now open for questions. I think we're doing pretty well on time. We have about 13 minutes to take questions from the audience. I know some of you have already been answering on text. So if someone wants to, just Lekha, how do we do this? Should they unmute them?
Yes. So what we can do is that they can raise their hands, and then I can unmute them, and they can put the questions to the respective panelists, and that's how we go about it. So audiences, as I've mentioned on the chat box, we're open for the Q&A. So please put your thoughts and share your questions with our panelists, and we'll take it from there.
Or you could just type in your questions. I'll read them out and
yes,
to the respective and whoever wants to have a go at it, please.
We'll wait for a while for the audience. You can unmute yourself. I've given that option to the audience, and put your question.
Hi, now this is Shiva Prasad.
Yes, Shiva Prasad, please put your question.
Yeah, I have raised a query that how far we have traveled as a pharma industry to reach through HCP digital adoption. Like nowadays, everyone is going and meeting the doctors. Like there are 3 big different eminent companies were there, like Alchem, Alembic, and Abbott. We are going and meeting to the HCPs through different like tabs and all other required things. But when it comes to, because of this pandemic, earlier we used to go and meet face to face to the doctors, right? Now, because of the pandemic, now we are restricting ourselves and we could not able to go and meet the customers. Earlier, we used to have a visual aid, which from far distance we could able to show it to the doctor and try to, explain to the customer about our things. But when it comes to the tab, the size has been gone down. And when it comes to the distance also has emerged from doctor to representative, the distance has moved to some 3 feet to 6 feet, 9 feet, 10 feet like that. Okay. So in this situation, how we have to engage these customers? Is there any multiple channel engagement which we can implement or something like that?
Can I answer that, Navdeep?
Absolutely. Go ahead, Roy.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the great question. As all the panelists said, I think the COVID has been really a game changer, especially in the digital adoption in the commercial side of pharma. And pharma companies are also becoming, I think because of the need of the time, they became much more smarter and try to leverage whatever was at the disposal. So right from the remote detailing, to WhatsApp detailing, to, through the messaging, through the phone calling, I think they've been tried all number of channels. The idea was, how do we remain connected, with the customer? So as I said, in the last couple of years, there has been a lot of adoption in the digital side. So the companies who were early adopters, they had the systems in place where the reps could very easily do the virtual detailing, wherein you can just schedule a call from the comfort of your home, and you can connect with the customers, and you can do the normal detailing, and everything was as smooth as possible. While the companies which were still on that journey and had those kind of systems, they kind of came up with some systems which work for them, either through the phone calling or either through the WhatsApp's means. But idea was to just remain connected with the customer. Now, I think, having said that, I think all the companies, having gone through the COVID times, they've realized that whether COVID or not, the digital adoption is one of the things that they need to do, and more adoption is now taking place. And even reps are also there were large number of field force which was earlier very skeptical about usage of these digital means, and having gone through the COVID times and reaped the benefit of that, the field force themselves are become very amicable to adoption of these technologies. So I think the COVID has become like a enabler, I would say, when it comes to the digital adoption. I hope I could answer your question.
Yes, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Navdeep, we have a question on the chat box from Prajakta Deshmukh. She asks, has there been any automation in computer system validation? So any thoughts on this?
This question?
Has there been any automation in computer system validation?
Okay, can I answer this question?
Yeah, please.
Yes, there is an automating computer system validation, what we call it CSV. So there is a automation. We can automate that CSV, and that is being well recognized by all regulators. So that has been in practice, in fact, since quite some time now. So you have a tool which gives you a complete validation report, CSV, and that is being recognized by regulators. So that has been in practice, in fact. Yeah, it is there.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mishra. Now the one more question from Vijaya Krishna Kulkarni. He asked the question: how best the Indian pharma companies follow up towards the patients in case of chronic diseases?
Yeah, I think
I can take that.
Yeah, this
Yes.
might be for Lekha. Yeah.
Well, first to make it very clear, pharmaceutical companies do not reach out to patients directly. Okay, so it's always through the HCPs, or pharmaceutical companies try to enable HCPs to do this connect better. So one is hospitals, in which doctors work. They provide some solutions. It could be some of the solutions which are there as an extended form which Practo and others gave. I'm just taking it as an example, where you can have a teleconnect with them, you can chat with them, and then there are some tools like and our solutions like Beto that lets you to there's a chatbot that does intermediate intervention. So for basic questions like, I think I'm feeling a bit dizzy now, what should I do? And the bot knows, tell them to take a fennel tea for some time, and it pushes a ping to the doctor. Then doctor will answer whenever his immediate next time permits, based on the priority of it, and what should be the intervention. The doctor feels that he needs to see the patients immediately, he might just call them and put it in. And of course, there are other variables that are available as of now, which is not always very economical, but yes, in terms of serious cases, it's easier to use. And as I was saying, there were from as small as a ring to a larger holster ECGs. You can for constant monitoring, which the cloud connects and the AI users there to send in triggers whenever there is a breach in the alarm set. So yes, so HCPs have solutions which they can reach out to through the hospitals, and sometimes pharmaceutical companies work with the HCP to make these solutions available to the patients as such.
Okay. Thank you so much, Lekha, for answering that question. So I think we can take a last question if we have any, Navdeep. And so audiences, any questions, you can just simply raise your hand or unmute yourself. So I think we have been on time and answered all the questions properly. So anything on closing note, Navdeep, or any of our panelists would like to do? Renee, you want to on a closing note?
Yeah, first of all, I'd just like to thank everyone for taking the time out. I know how busy all our schedules are, and thanks to everyone, Renee, Lekha, Rohit, Mr. Mishra, Pratyush. It's been great talking to you. Some very insightful points, and some very great insights on how you are seeing the digital adoption within the pharma industry in various use cases. And Renee, if you would like to sort of say something.
No, just say thank you again for giving us the opportunity also to discuss. And I found the discussion very insightful. And it also shows that we have, as pharma, I guess we have gone a good way. And I guess Rohit was saying that it was primarily driven by COVID. I would say at least we got in kind of an acceleration in all the digitization activities. And but I also agree with all of you that there's still a way to go. There's still a way to go, in particular if you compare it with other industries that are much more ahead than pharma is. But I mean, it's also a very difficult environment, but I see that the technologies are there. There's actually nothing that should hold every pharma back in driving the digitization in their own processes and in their factories.
Thanks, Renee. Thanks for that.
Thank you. Navdeep, before you leave, I think we have a question from Sachin Joshi. Sachin, if you can unmute yourself and put your question, like about the digital involvement of PTC, I think is asking.
Yeah, I'm just saying that now since it is digital era and now we are reaching more number of patients, probably any experience, anybody, it will be very useful in terms of how the regulations may change in terms of involvement of patients going forth, because for example, running patients group digitally or having more patient testimonials, because currently in India there might be very much restrictions on patient involvement. Even in terms of patient testimonials, the patients can directly come up. So any suggestions on that?
So my question is to the group, is it individual pharma will come with a different software and gives to the doctors, how patient will get benefited? So a patient cannot have multiple prescriptions will be there, and how patient can manage with from the doctor if he get a software or linking to the doctor for any reminders like medicines reminders, what Lekha has said. So all these only one software will be there, or it will be a harmonized software, or individual company will come with a different software. How it will be managed by a customer or by patient?
Can I answer this? I am from the audience.
Sure,
yes, please. You can introduce yourself and answer.
Yeah, I am Rajiv Bahugna, and I've been in the pharmaceutical sector side for close to around 30 years. Quite an interesting insight on various things from manufacturing till the patient. I'm very sure and very confident, yes, digital is doing and will create a hell of a difference for all the stakeholders in the entire supply chain. Coming to the question back, yes, there are certain softwares and which give end-to-end solution to the pharma companies. And those softwares companies are using, people are close to around 35,000 doctors on a particular software. I will not name it. It will be unjustified on my part to name the software here. 35,000 doctors are already enrolled on that and they are using it. The question was, if the doctor wants to choose a particular brand of a company, that software itself has close to around 1,97,000 SKUs. So the doctor can choose the brand, strength, whichever company he wants to support, he can support on that software. The patient gets the prescription on that particular software. The patient goes to the lab testings also, and the delivery is done to the patient. Everything is there in that, from e-consultation, video consultation. You want to do any kind of analysis on what is the doctor's prescribing habit, everything. So one of the very good software it is there. Thank you. I hope I answered the question which the gentleman had regarding how the pharma companies, a particular pharma company, I very strongly doubt they will come out with their own software. Yes, for manufacturing, they will. For supply chain, they will. But for from the point of view that a prescription is generated at the doctor's chamber until the patient gets the medicine, that is a separate ball game.
Yeah, and also to add into that, this is a question of personal rights or the privacy of the patient, right? So it cannot be mandated to use one software. So it's between the consent of the patient and the consent of the HCP that what is the secure network they are comfortable using. So you might end up being an unharmonious system where there are multiple systems, but in the view of the the privacy and the data regulation, that I guess will be the way it will go.
It is already taken care of, ma'am. The HCP, there is a NDC there. The privacy of the patient is completely secured, and everything is secured as per the Indian regulations. I am basically working as of now in a digital pharmacy company.
Oh, that's nice.
Great. Thanks, Rajiv. Thanks for that.
Yeah, very interesting session. Very interesting.
Thanks. And thanks to everyone. Thanks, Ekta, for getting this together. Really helpful. And thanks to all the panelists for taking time out and sharing their insights. So I think
thank you. Yeah, so so now I would like to do a closing as well. So we have heard great insights on augmented reality and how the technology is making measurable difference in tackling the key challenges in the operations and overall pharmaceutical industry when it comes to digital transformation, of course. So on this closing note, I would like to thank all our thought leaders for taking out your precious time and being here with us. Not missing our partners, PTC, for coming and sharing your great insights on solutions for the pharmaceutical industry. Our lovely audience, thank you again for being here. I know it's a working day, but still you guys made it. Thank you so much for making the session engaging with your continuous questions on the chat box. And I would also like to thank our analytics team for getting the right people on board, and our producer Shamin, who managed to get such wonderful speakers and a panelist on board. So we'll be also sharing with you the video link shortly, and we have also mentioned about a feedback form. So requesting to please share your thoughts and give us your feedback, which mentions about one-on-one brainstorm sessions with PTC who have great solutions for the pharmaceutical industry. So we would love to reconnect you guys again with the PTC. So my team will again be reaching you out for the same. And please follow us on social media platforms for the various webinars and updates. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thanks,
Take care.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Everyone, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.